People always talk about red flags like they come with sirens or giant flashing arrows. But most of the time, they're quieter. Like when your wife suddenly puts a password on her phone after 5 years of not having one. That was mine. The lock screen. It happened on a Tuesday morning in November. We were finishing up breakfast, coffee for me, matcha for her. I asked her to check our shared calendar for her cousin's baby shower next weekend. She slid her phone across the table. You can check it. I picked it up. Tapped the screen. Enter passcode. Huh. I looked up. New security upgrade. She barely looked up from her laptop. Oh yeah, sorry. I had to set it for work. Company policy. We're handling sensitive contracts. She worked in partnerships at a mid-sized Seattle tech startup, the kind that always felt like it was either about to IPO or collapse. I'd met her CEO once at a holiday event. He was the kind of guy who said crush it unironically. Anyway, I nodded. Cool. What's the passcode? She hesitated for half a second. I'll just check it for you. And that's when it hit me. She didn't want me in her phone. We'd been married 5 years. Together for 7. We weren't the couple that snooped or overshared. But we also never had anything to hide. Her phone used to be face up on the counter. She'd send me memes from it while I was driving. Once, I used it to find a vet when our lab, Murphy, got into the compost bin and started throwing up shredded eggshells and who knows what else. We were a team. That's what it had always felt like. But lately, I'd felt like the only one showing up to practice. She started coming home later. Claimed she was meeting with investors or flying to Portland for industry mixers. I bought it, mostly because I wanted to. But now her phone was locked. And that wasn't the only thing. She'd also turned off location sharing on our phones, something we'd had set up since her first solo hiking trip in the Olympics. Just in case I get eaten by a bear, she used to joke. I noticed it about a week after the passcode. I opened Find My iPhone to check if she'd made it to Portland safely. Instead, all I saw was location not available. When I asked her, she brushed it off. It's probably just bugging out. You know how flaky that app is. Except it wasn't flaky. She turned it off on purpose. And that was when I started writing everything down. It's funny, when you first start suspecting your spouse is cheating, you feel like a villain for even thinking it. Then you realize you've just been writing off weird behavior as stress or overwork because it's easier than facing the alternative. That's what I was doing. Playing dumb. But the signs started stacking up. She flew to San Diego for work, but forgot her laptop charger. She claimed her meeting ran late, but had a hotel room booked 5 hours before it started. She wore new lingerie I hadn't seen before, on a Wednesday, for a sales dinner. She started showering the second she got home, before saying hi, before petting Murphy. I didn't have proof, but I had the gut feeling. And then came the holiday party. Her startup threw a big event at a rooftop lounge downtown. Part tech mixer, part boozy chaos. I went with her, made small talk with folks who all wore branded hoodies and said things like "I adjacent." She drank more than usual, smiled a little too brightly, disappeared for chunks of time to catch up with the VP of product. We left around midnight. Took an Uber home because she was tipsy and I didn't want to navigate snowy side streets. She passed out on the couch with her shoes still on. And that's when I saw it. Her phone, on the armrest, buzzing with a notification. And before I could even think, my brain whispered, she's not going to know it's missing in the morning. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it. Sat on the edge of the couch next to her sleeping body, Murphy curled up at my feet. If I was wrong, I'd be breaking her trust for nothing. But if I was right, I'd been living with a stranger. I tucked the phone into my jacket pocket. She woke up groggy around 3 a.m. and stumbled into the bedroom. I stayed on the couch, pretending to sleep. She never noticed it was gone. By 7 a.m., I was meeting the Uber driver in front of a Starbucks down the street. "Yeah, I found this wedged in the back seat," he said. "Assumed it was one of yours." I tipped him $20 and said, "Thanks for saving my weekend." Then I walked home, opened my laptop, and started backing up the phone. There's a data recovery tool I'd used once when I accidentally wiped my work iPad. Let's just say I was very motivated to figure it out again. It took a few tries, but I got everything cloned. Every photo, every message, every Google Maps ping, every Lyft receipt, every Gmail autosave. She'd wiped some things from her inbox, but not her history. And that's where the truth was hiding. Not in the texts, in the trails. I'll say this up front. I wasn't looking for a reason to destroy my marriage. I was looking for a reason not to. I wanted to open that folder, that cloud sync, that digital clone of my wife's phone, and find nothing. Maybe a few boring calendar invites, a weird amount of TikToks, maybe even a group chat she didn't want me to know about because they talked about Real Housewives and roasted their bosses. What I didn't expect was to find an entire second life. And it started with a Lyft receipt. I wasn't even snooping, technically. I didn't need to crack her passwords or guess her thumbprint. All I had to do was sync the phone clone to a clean drive and look at the folders auto-generated by iOS. Messages, photos, Safari, mail, calendar, ride history, and most importantly, maps. I opened Lyft first. Her ride history was about what you'd expect, mostly commutes from the office to client dinners, rides home from airports. But there was one that stood out. November 9 to 3:12 p.m. Picked up from Seattle, Tacoma. Dropped off at the Waterfront Dusk Hotel, downtown Seattle. I stared at that entry for a long time. She'd told me she was flying to Portland that week for a Women in Tech Leadership Summit. Left early Thursday morning. Came back late Saturday. But this Lyft receipt said she never even left the city. She had taken a Lyft from the airport to a hotel 10 miles from our apartment. My pulse quickened. I clicked on the receipt. There was a second one, Saturday, November 11 to 9:41 a.m. A Lyft from the Waterfront Dusk back to Seattle, Tacoma. So she had booked flights. She went to the airport, but she never flew out. She just stayed here, at a hotel, for 2 days. I clicked over to the map's history. If you didn't know, Google quietly logs every step you take, as long as you have location services turned on, which she did, or had, until recently. And there it was. Her phone never left Seattle. From Thursday morning to Saturday night, the blue dot pinged between just two places, the Waterfront Dusk Hotel and a bistro 3 blocks away called Clover and Vine. A quick Google search showed it was a romantic little place. Dim lights, prix-fixe menu, exposed brick walls, and fancy candle setups. $2 signs on Yelp. One of those spots that practically whispers a fare. I sat back in my chair. Murphy let out a soft snore under the table, completely oblivious. I envied him. In the span of 10 minutes, I had confirmed my wife was lying about travel, lying about where she was staying, and, if I was right, probably lying about who she was with. But I needed more. I wasn't going to accuse her with a Lyft receipt and a gut feeling. So I dug deeper. Her Gmail was linked in the cloud backup, not the whole inbox, just the cached emails on her phone. But it was enough. Most of her messages were harmless, newsletters, flight confirmations, work crap. But there was a reservation email that caught my eye. From Clover and Vine. Subject: Your table for 2 is confirmed. It was for Friday, November 10th at 7 p.m. Under guest name, Mira Connors, her real name. No mention of a guest. But when I looked through the confirmation thread, she'd replied, "Please seat us in one of the private booths in the back, if possible. Celebrating a special reunion." A reunion? With who? I checked the mail app for more clues. Nothing direct. Nothing signed, love, or can't wait to see you. But she was smart. I didn't expect anything obvious. That's when I opened her photos. There weren't many from that weekend. But there were 2. One was a selfie, her in a black wrap dress I'd never seen before, hair done up, red lipstick. She was in a mirror, hotel bathroom behind her, smiling. The kind of smile you give someone else. Not the camera. Not yourself. The second photo made my stomach turn. It was a picture of 2 glasses, wine, red, clinking together. Dim background. Candlelight. The kind of photo people take when they're trying to be subtle, trying not to show the person across the table. But you could see just enough of a reflection in the glass. The silhouette of a man's hand. Not mine. Different skin tone. Thicker wrist. A silver ring on the pinky finger. I zoomed in until it pixelated. That was all I needed. She hadn't made a mistake. She hadn't just had a moment or one bad night. This was deliberate. Calculated. She had booked a weekend in town. Told me she was in Portland. Reserved a booth at a restaurant built for dates. Posed for photos. Hid names. Hid locations. And I never suspected a thing. I sat there in the quiet, staring at my own hands, trying to remember the last time she touched them the way she used to. When we were first married, she used to trace circles into my palm while we watched TV. Just absent-minded affection. Small gestures. Now she barely touched me at all. I opened the messages folder. Looked for anything suspicious. She'd deleted a lot. Whole threads gone. Most of the conversations were with coworkers, friends, family. But there was one new number, Saved as A. Stone. The thread was thin. Just a few texts. Mostly logistics. A. Stone, same hotel. Mira, yes. Same room. Late check-in. A. Stone, you bringing the black one. Mira, wouldn't dream of wearing anything else. A. Stone, see you soon. Miss your laugh. That was it. No last names. No photos. No calls listed. But I had enough. Over the next hour, I screen captured everything. The receipts. The photos. The texts. The emails. Even the maps trail. I compiled it into a folder. Then I backed it up to a thumb drive. Then I made a second folder and started printing. Not for her. Not yet. For everyone else. Her company had a strict ethics policy. Her affair partner, if he was who I suspected, had a family of his own. And her parents? Let's just say they were traditional. I didn't touch her phone. I kept it powered off and tucked away in a drawer. Let her think it was still lost in the Uber. She hadn't even asked about it yet. That told me everything. By Sunday morning, I had 3 thick envelopes ready to go. One addressed to her boss, with a note. Thought you'd want to know what your partnerships manager is doing on client weekends. One for Mrs. Abigail Stone. I'd found her name on LinkedIn, cross-referenced with a Facebook tag from a past party photo. And one for her parents, mailed directly to their home in Spokane, with a simple typed note. You always said you raised her better. No return addresses. No handwriting. Nothing to trace. I dropped them in 3 different mailboxes across the city. Then I went home, packed my things, took Murphy, and left. The thing no one tells you about walking away is just how quiet it gets. It's not peace. Not yet. It's something else. Like the ringing in your ears after an explosion. That was what it felt like, driving out of the city that Sunday with Murphy in the passenger seat, his tongue lolling out the window, completely unaware that we were leaving behind something broken, something scorched beyond repair. I didn't go far. Just across Lake Washington to a short-term sublet in Bellevue. The kind of apartment people use when their real life is temporarily out of reach. Sparse furniture. Neutral walls. No memories. That was exactly what I wanted. No memories. She didn't call that night. I kept checking, watching for the signal. Maybe a missed call, a panicked voicemail, a flurry of texts asking where her phone was, why the apartment was half empty, what happened. Nothing. Just silence. I woke up Monday morning and checked again. Still nothing. She was used to me being the one to fix things. That's how we always were. If something went wrong, a bad day, a missed flight, a forgotten anniversary, I was the glue, the apology, the solution. But this time, I wasn't fixing anything. I was done holding a relationship together with duct tape and denial. Monday afternoon, my phone finally buzzed. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, a new message popped up. Luke, if you get this, please call me. I lost my phone. I don't know where anything is. I came home, and I don't know what's going on. Where are you? Please, just call me. She sounded breathless, rattled. For the first time in months, I could hear genuine panic in her voice. Not performative, not guilt-ridden, just raw confusion. It should have felt good. It didn't. I didn't call her back. Instead, I walked Murphy down to the park and sat by the lake, tossing a tennis ball and watching the city skyline glow behind the water. I imagined her walking through the apartment that afternoon, noticing the closet, half empty, the drawers, bare, the absence of Murphy's food bowl, the box of my books missing from the shelf, the spare key gone from the hook behind the thermostat. The silence would have greeted her like a slap. And if she was half as clever as I suspected, the realization wouldn't take long. Not just that I was gone, but that someone had seen what she never meant to be seen. I pictured her picking up the mail the next day, or opening a package her boss forwarded, or getting a call from her father, whose disappointment could cut deeper than any insult. She'd know. Eventually, she'd know. I lasted 2 full days before I answered her. It was Tuesday night. My phone buzzed again. This time, no caller ID. Just the familiar silence before her voice cut through. Luke, she said. Please talk to me. Just tell me what you want. I came home, and I thought maybe someone broke in, or maybe you'd had an accident, or I didn't know what to think. But then I started getting calls. My dad. My boss. She paused, choking back a sob. What did you do? That's when I picked up. I held the phone to my ear, let the silence stretch. Then I said, You left your phone in the Uber. She exhaled sharply. Luke. I didn't give it back. Silence. Then, oh my God. Yeah, I said. That's what I said too. She showed up the next morning. I watched from the peephole as she stood outside the sublet's door, wearing an old hoodie of mine, face blotchy, eyes puffy. She looked like someone who hadn't slept, like someone who'd run out of explanations. She knocked once, then again. I let it ring out, let her feel the weight of the silence. "Luke," she said through the door, her voice barely holding together. "I know you hate me. You have every right. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to end it. Still, I didn't open the door. Not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to say to her." Back in Seattle, our apartment was frozen in time. I knew because I checked, not in person, but through the building's security portal. I still had login access. The building had cameras at each floor's entrance. I watched the footage like surveillance, her coming and going alone, pacing, sitting in the hallway outside our unit, waiting for something that wasn't coming back. I watched her bring Murphy's food bowl back inside 2 days later. I watched her pull the blinds shut. At some point, she must have realized I wasn't returning. That was the thing about her. She was always 10 steps ahead, until the day I stopped playing. By Friday, I'd returned to work. No dramatic announcements. Just showed up to the office, powered up my laptop, and replied to emails like nothing had shattered behind the scenes. My boss pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay. I said, "It will be." That was the truth. Not today. Not yet. But soon. I kept thinking about that text in her inbox. "You bringing the black one?" And how casually cruel it was. How something as simple as a dress could become evidence of betrayal. We used to go shopping together. She'd try things on and twirl in front of the mirror, asking if it was too much. I always told her she looked beautiful. Always. She saved those dresses for someone else now. And I didn't need to know who he was. I just needed to be done. Saturday morning, I got a letter. No return address. But the handwriting was hers. Inside was a single page, handwritten, folded twice. "Luke, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to believe anything I say. But I need you to know something. It wasn't just about him. It was about me. About how small I started to feel next to you. Not because of anything you did, but because I didn't know how to keep up. You were stable and grounded, and I was chasing something. And I let it twist into something ugly. I'm sorry. For all of it. You didn't deserve this. I don't deserve you. Please take care of Murphy. He always loved you more anyway. Mira." I read it once. Then again. Then I tore it in half and dropped it in the trash. Some people write letters to clean their conscience. I wasn't giving her that. That night, Murphy and I sat out on the sublet's small balcony, listening to the distant hum of the city. The air smelled like moss and asphalt and late summer. I looked down at my dog, loyal, quiet, his head resting on my foot, and thought, at least one of us knew how to stay. It wasn't closure. Not yet. But it was enough. Enough to breathe. Enough to start again. By the time the letter showed up, I'd had her phone for 11 days. Not that she wanted it back. She never once asked where it was. Never texted, never emailed, never sent someone else to get it. Not even in the handwritten apology. That detail stuck with me. How she just surrendered it. Like she knew it had already told me everything I needed to know. And she was right. But I couldn't quite bring myself to get rid of it. Not yet. It sat in a drawer next to my keys and passport in the sublet's entryway. I'd glance at it sometimes while heading out to walk Murphy or grabbing a fresh set of headphones for the gym. The screen was always dark. Battery long dead. But the presence was still there. It was like keeping an urn in the house after a funeral. Not because you believed the ashes had answers, but because throwing them out felt too final. I didn't power it on again. Didn't need to. I already had the backup clone, the screen-captured files, the organized folders buried deep in an encrypted SSD labeled Crash Plan. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about what I hadn't seen. What might have been deleted. What corners of her digital life still held secrets. What messages vanished before the backup completed. Because the real wound wasn't the affair itself. It was how long she'd maintained it. Managed it. Hid it. It wasn't a slip. It was a system. And somewhere in that phone, I felt like the full truth was still humming, just under the surface. About a week after she came to the door, I cracked. It was 2:17 a.m., and I couldn't sleep. Murphy was snoring. The street outside was dead quiet. One of those rare moments in the city where it feels like the entire world took a breath and held it. I got out of bed, walked barefoot across the kitchen tiles, opened the drawer. There it was. Still dark. Still hers. I plugged it in. Let it charge. 15 minutes later, it buzzed to life. The lock screen lit up. Enter passcode. I laughed to myself. What was I expecting? A grand reveal? Some hidden folder labeled "The Truth" in flashing neon? No, just a 4-digit passcode I didn't have. And yet, I guessed. First try, 1224, her birthday. No go. Second try, 0915, our anniversary. Nope. I stared at the screen. Tried one more, 0427, the day she got promoted last year. The screen blinked. Unlocked. It was all still there. The texts, the images. The cloud backup had only caught what was on the phone at the time, but now I could see everything she'd done since. Deleted photos. Archived messages. The cache of Google Maps pings and Uber receipts that continued to build even after I moved out. She'd met him again. Just once. 3 days after I left. Different hotel. Different dinner spot. Same Lyft ride pattern. Same 2-night stay. But this time, there were no selfies. No wineglass photos. No emojis. The texts were clinical. Cold. Mira, room 308. Don't knock. Just use the card. Hey, Stone. You sure? Mira. Don't make me explain. I couldn't tell if it was desperation or denial. She was still in it. Even after everything. Still chasing whatever it was he made her feel. I found a hidden folder in the photo gallery. One of those secure albums locked behind Face ID. But I had the phone. I was the Face ID now. It opened instantly. Inside were 34 photos. Not of him, but of her. Mirror shots. Lingerie. Hotel beds. Black dresses. Makeup half smeared. One shot of her crying, mascara streaked, eyes glassy. Taken in a bathroom I didn't recognize. I stared at that one the longest. It didn't make me feel pity. Or anger. Just hollow. Who takes a photo like that? Who captures their own destruction? The Notes app was the worst. People underestimate it. Think it's just for grocery lists or passwords. But Notes is where you store the stuff you can't say out loud. The things you're afraid to text. The feelings that don't fit anywhere else. Her app had 17 entries. Most were normal, to-do lists, grocery reminders, a packing list for her fake Portland trip. But one was titled, "Why I Still Do It." My hands were shaking as I opened it. Because he listens to me. Because I don't feel like a project around him. Because I don't have to talk about work. Because when he looks at me, he sees me. Luke loves me, but he doesn't look at me anymore. He loves the version of me he remembers. And maybe I'm terrible, but at least with I don't feel invisible. I read it twice. Then a third time. Then I closed the app, walked into the bathroom, and vomited. I didn't rage. Didn't scream. Didn't throw the phone across the room. I just sat on the bathroom floor with my head against the cold tile, trying to remember what version of her I'd been holding on to all this time. I thought about how she used to fall asleep on my chest. How she used to leave sticky notes in my lunchbox. How she once cried in the aisle at Target because we couldn't decide between 2 rugs, and it felt like a metaphor. Had I really stopped seeing her? Or had she just stopped letting me? The next day, I did what I should have done the minute I left. I powered the phone down. Hard reset. Factory wipe. Then I walked 3 blocks to a park with a deep pond in the center. Stood at the edge. Held the phone in my hand. It felt heavy. Like a stone. Not because of the device itself, but because of everything it carried. And then I threw it in. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Watched it sink through the water. Disappear. Not a splash. Just a ripple. When I got back to the apartment, I opened my laptop. Deleted the clone backup. Erased the screenshots. Cleared the trash bin. Wiped the encrypted SSD. No trophies. No digital graves. I didn't need them anymore. She had been a chapter. Not the book. Later that night, I walked Murphy through a nearby neighborhood I hadn't explored before. We passed couples on porches, kids on scooters, an old man watering a patch of grass that barely counted as a lawn. Normal life. Unaware. Untouched. It looked so foreign. And yet, possible. I watched Murphy chase a leaf down the sidewalk, tail wagging like it was his mission from God. He didn't care where we lived. As long as we were together. As long as we kept walking forward. I stopped checking my email. Stopped opening apps. Stopped expecting updates. Stopped waiting for closure wrapped in some clever apology or overworked justification. It's funny how silence, once terrifying, starts to feel like safety. When I was with her, silence used to mean something was wrong. It was the pause before a fight, the quiet between the lies. Now, silence meant distance. Distance meant healing. I kept Murphy's leash by the front door. His water bowl sat in a clean corner by the window, and every time I came home from work and saw him waiting, tail thudding like a drum, I remembered, some things in your life will never fake love. 2 weeks after I factory wiped her phone and dropped it in the pond, I got a message from an unknown number. Not blocked, not anonymous, just a new number I didn't recognize. Luke, please. I know I don't deserve your time, but I need to talk to you. Just one time. Face to face. I'll never contact you again if you say no. No name. But she didn't need one. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. No reply. No reaction. No more messages. When I first moved into the sublet, everything echoed. No rugs, no bookshelves, no soft corners to trap sound. Every footstep felt like a shout. Every breath like a broadcast. But slowly, I started filling the space. Bought a used armchair that smelled faintly of cedar. Framed a photo of Murphy and me from last winter. His face covered in snow, my glove missing a finger. Brought home groceries and learned to cook again without setting off the smoke alarm. Little by little, it became a home. Not our home. Mine. Friends started checking in. Max was first, of course. He never really stopped. He didn't ask questions at first. Just showed up with Thai takeout and stories from work and new bands I'd never heard of. We'd sit on the balcony, drink cheap beer, and talk about nothing on purpose. Then came the inevitable. One night, he finally said it. So, you gonna tell me what actually happened? I looked out over the city skyline. Took a slow sip. She cheated, I said. Max didn't flinch. Didn't launch into outrage or pity. He just nodded. How bad? Planned. Repeated. Deliberate. He sat back in the chair. You okay? I shrugged. Not yet. But I'm okay enough. You want to talk about it? I looked him in the eye. I don't want to give it any more space than it already took. And that was it. He didn't press. Didn't poke around for the juicy parts. That's what made him my best friend. He didn't need the dirt to know the damage. My parents took longer to ask. They'd always liked Mira. Mom especially. They thought she was polished, ambitious, put together. And for a while, she was. When I told them we were separated, they assumed it was stress. Startup culture. Long hours. Drift. I didn't correct them. Then a package showed up at their place. Anonymous. No return address. Postmarked from Seattle. It didn't take long for my mother to call. I didn't answer. She called again 2 hours later. Then again the next morning. Eventually, I picked up. Luke, she said softly. Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't want to explain it. I understand. But honey, we would have been there. We are here. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to answer questions I didn't have answers for. That's okay, she said. We're not asking anything now. Just, please come for dinner sometime. I will. We miss you. I miss you too. It wasn't a reconciliation. It wasn't even comfort. But it was connection, and that was more than I'd had in a long time. Work became my safe place. It was structure. It was routine. It was emails and deadlines and problem solving that didn't cut into your soul. My manager never pried. But he gave me a quiet nod when I started staying later, volunteering for more. He knew I needed something to pour myself into. And I did. That version of me. The one who had bent so much to accommodate a partner I didn't realize was already elsewhere, finally had room to stand tall again. I rediscovered pieces of myself I hadn't seen in years. Music, running, waking up without dread. Even my face in the mirror looked different. Not sad, not angry, just mine. Mira didn't try again. Not through texts, not through calls, not even through mutual friends. Whatever messages she thought might fix things, I'd already erased them. Because there's a difference between forgiveness and access. Forgiveness is yours to give, on your terms. Access, that has to be earned. And she never asked to earn it. She just wanted to be heard. I'd done enough listening. One night, I took Murphy down to the waterfront. It was early spring. Windy. That damp Pacific chill that cuts through every layer of fleece. He sniffed every bench, every trash can, every tree like it had a secret. We sat near the edge, looking out over the dark water. I thought about how things had started with her, the first apartment, the ramen dates, the dog adoption. Then I thought about how it ended. A lock screen, a lost phone, a silence I didn't break. And for the first time, I felt something close to peace. Not because I'd moved on, but because I finally understood that some people don't return the love you give. Not because they don't want to, but because they don't know how. I pulled my phone from my coat pocket, opened notes, typed something out quickly, before the feeling faded. You can't get closure from someone who was never open in the first place. Some goodbyes don't come with explanations, just quiet doors. And some stories don't end with revenge. They end with escape. I went back once. Not because I missed her. Not because I was hoping for a conversation. And definitely not for closure. I'd already buried that months ago, somewhere between the lift receipts and the hotel room screenshots. No, I went back to finish what I started. The lease on the Seattle apartment was up in 4 weeks. The sublet had become home now. Messy, peaceful mine. But I still had a few things tucked away in the old place. Some books, a winter jacket I forgot, and the last spare key, which I'd kept in the drawer by Murphy's leash like a fuse waiting to be lit. So one Saturday, I drove across the bridge. Same route I used to take to work. Same skyline. Same water. But it didn't feel like going home. It felt like visiting someone else's ghost. The elevator still smelled the same. That weird lemon cleaner and somebody's cologne baked into the walls. Floor 9 lit up with a soft ding. I stepped out and paused, listening. Silence. She was either gone or too embarrassed to open the door. I didn't care which. I slid the key in, turned it. The door opened. Empty. Not like ransacked or gutted, just vacant. She was gone. The furniture was still there, but it looked unlived in. The couch was bare, throw pillows stacked neatly like no one ever leaned into them. The dining table had no fruit bowl, no centerpiece. The air smelled like cleaning spray and dust. Even Murphy's old water dish had been moved from the corner, like she couldn't stand the reminders. I walked from room to room, letting my feet take me on autopilot. I found my jacket in the hall closet, still on the same hanger I left it on. A few hardcover books from my old shelf sat in a box labeled Luke in handwriting I barely recognized. Efficient. Minimal. Not cold, just final. In the bedroom, I stood in the doorway for a long time. The bed was made. Crisp corners. New sheets. Not ours. There was no photo on the nightstand. No candle. No clutter. Just sterile, intentional nothingness. Like she was trying to pretend no one else had ever lived here with her. I reached under the bed and pulled out the storage bin where we used to keep shared memories. Old cards, Polaroids, ticket stubs. For a second, I braced myself to find it either burned or brimming with apologies. It wasn't. She'd taken out every photo that included both of us. Every single one. All that remained were neutral things. A postcard from New York. An envelope of receipts from our honeymoon, minus the pictures. A single Valentine's card, and signed. Everything else. Gone. Just like her. I found what I came for. A few books, a vintage record I thought I lost, a hoodie that still smelled like cedar wood in autumn. I packed them into a tote, zipped my jacket, and walked back through the living room one last time. As I passed the bookshelf, something caught my eye. A photo. Face down. I picked it up and turned it over. It was a picture of Murphy, sitting on the balcony, tongue out, looking directly at the camera. It was from last summer. I'd taken it the night we grilled veggie burgers and drank too much wine, laughing at some dumb true crime podcast she insisted on playing. I flipped it over again. Nothing written on the back. Just Murphy. Happy. Present. Ours. I slipped it into my pocket without thinking. Then I locked the door behind me and dropped the key into the apartment manager's mailbox on my way out. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. There was no dramatic goodbye, no bittersweet montage. Just the sound of my boots on the hallway floor and the weight of a door that didn't belong to me anymore finally closing for good. The next day, I went out and bought new sheets. Dark green. Heavy cotton. Soft enough that I didn't wake up thinking about her side of the bed. I ordered new plates. New forks. A set of mugs that didn't say his and hers on the bottom. I deleted the last autofill with her name in my browser. Cleared the cloud contacts. Removed her Spotify access. Every pixel of her. Gone from the places I needed to reclaim. Then I did something that surprised me. I opened the window. Let the wind in. Let the new world take up space. 3 weeks later, I met someone. Not like that. Not romantically. Her name was Elena, and she was walking her golden retriever in the park when Murphy trotted up to sniff introductions. We laughed, made a little small talk, and then kept walking together. She never asked why I looked tired, or why I stared off sometimes when the water caught the light just right. She just asked if I'd ever tried Thai rolled ice cream from the little truck near the marina. We sat on a bench and talked about horror movies and our worst jobs, and how Seattle had somehow managed to be rainy and on fire all at once last summer. No flirting. No plans. Just a conversation that didn't cost me anything. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to prove I was whole. I never told Mira that I went back to the apartment. Never told her I found the picture. Never answered the last message she sent, which, months later, simply read, "If you ever wonder whether I loved you, I did. I just didn't love myself." Maybe that was true. Maybe not. But it wasn't mine to carry anymore. The new apartment got quieter after that. Not empty. Just peaceful. The kind of quiet that feels earned. The kind where the worst thing that could have happened already did, and the world didn't stop spinning. One night, I was organizing a drawer and found a slip of paper I'd forgotten about. The last thing I wrote in the Notes app before I destroyed her phone. Some people aren't meant to be trusted. They're meant to be left behind. I didn't throw it away. I folded it. Slipped it into the bottom of a drawer. A reminder. Not of her, but of me. She's somewhere now. Probably still working in tech. Probably still explaining the confusion to HR or crafting some therapy-inspired monologue for her next partner. But I'm not curious anymore. She used to be my world. Now, she's just not mine anymore. The end. Subscribe to the channel